time will prove. Yes, only time will prove if I have lost my way. 'Cause I hear tell about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for basements. Yeah, I've lost my way, but I hear tell about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for basements.
All right. Hi, everyone. Frankie here, New West Reset. Welcome back. And thank you for joining me here for another New West Reset Live, episode 62. Here tonight, or this evening, or this afternoon. Friday, April the 19th. Just a skosh past 5 p.m. local time, mountain time out here. Coming at you as always from Calgary and Purdy, Alberta. Calgary, Alberta, Canada. You know, up in Canada land there, eh? So how's she going there, buddy? How you doing? Welcome. Thank you very much for shooting in, joining me here. Great to see you. It's Friday, and well, if you're kicking off your weekend with me on your Friday, thank you very much. Kind of a decent day today. I don't know. It was all right. Coming off of a couple of days of rain mixed with snow. Yeah, that's right. Snow. I know, shocking, right? Snow up in Canada, you say? Yes, that's right. But it was mixed with rain. It didn't accumulate, right? It was just one of those things where the wind shifts so that it's coming from the north, and the precipitation is snow rather than rain. It was mixed with rain, but you know. And today was sunny, beautiful blue skies, but not super warm. I think it went to 5 Celsius, like 40-ish, 42 Fahrenheit, give or take. So, I mean, not terrible, but not the best. But it was a dry day in terms of nothing coming down. So I figured I'd get ready. So I went and did some stuff. And you're thinking, big deal. Get ready for what, Frankie? The apocalypse? The crap hitting the fan? What? No. Just getting ready for the 1,500 subscriber meetup. That's right. Getting real close, everybody. So thank you. If you've already subscribed, thank you. If you've already hit the like, if you haven't, please consider. It'd be nice. And thanks once again for kicking off your Friday with yours truly, my favorite day of the week. Woo. I always look forward to these. So thank you very much, because you know it's Friday. So tonight we're going to be looking at the Crystal Palaces of Canada. That's right, plural. There was more than one Crystal Palace up here in Canada. Heck, there was more than one just in Toronto, in the T dot. There's at least five that I could find, that I could at least find photos of and look at it and go, yeah, I'll count that as a Crystal Palace. Like there's enough glass in that thing where they could call it a glass palace or a crystal palace. And actually, in one case, it is called Glass Palace rather than Crystal Palace, but I put it on the list. The hell with it. So, as always, links in the description below for everything we're going to cover. In terms of some of the, well, I was just shocked that there's at least 5 of these things. Basically, every major city that you can think of when you think of Canada, right? Like Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, right? They all had some kind of Crystal Palace. And I was just like, what the what? I kind of stumbled upon this a little bit when I was looking into the story of multiple Crystal Palaces in Toronto. And we'll get into that later on in the show. I don't want to get ahead of myself and let the cat out of the bag or anything. But in researching the nonsense, the shenanigans with the Crystal Palace over in there in Toronto, I stumbled upon other Crystal Palaces here in Canada, and I was like, wait, what? Say what? That does make sense, eh? So thought I'd share it with you because it's there's the usual stuff where when you just kind of look a little into it instead of just having a passing acceptance of the main story like most other people say, yeah, okay, sure. If you look a little further into it, as per usual, you get more questions than answers. Plus, as mentioned, I got some photos, so we'll look at that as well. Links in the description below for everything, including a guy's email, my MeWe, of course, BitChute, and Rumble. And speaking of Rumble, welcome everybody on the HooTubes and the Rumble, as we are broadcasting simultaneously on both. So thank you very much for joining me. And speaking of subscribers and getting close to that 1,500 subscriber, let's say hello. Everybody in the box, if you're tuning in, thank you very much. Welcome. Say hello in the chat there. Let me know where you're shooting in from. If you're watching this after the fact, appreciate your support as well. Thank you very kindly for taking the time to watch a goof up here in Canada, eh? Chassis Nix is here. Hello, Chassis. Howdy. Welcome. Hippie's here as well. Howdy, Hippie. Terry Light. Terry, you got a wrench now. So a guy's loaded some burden on your shoulders. I'm kidding. You've helped out so much with the channel here with past subject matter and photos and show ideas that, and you're a friend of the channel. So, going to give you a wrench so you can share links and what have yous. Speaking of which, there's my buddy IRL, my friend in real life. Cousin Vinny's here. Good to see you, sir. Welcome. My pal Bill Pals. Mariette is here from the Netherlands. Hidden at plain sight. Hi. Good to see you. Awakening Soldier. Yeah, Crystal Palaces were replaced with all kinds of dodgy stuff. Everything from parking garages to government-approved controlled substances, shall we say, amongst other things. Neural mass in the box as well. Howdy. Roth Rods is here as well. Good to see you. Old World, Michigan. Team Heat. How's she going there? Oh, hey, guy. Kathy Childers. Howdy. Thanks for shooting in. Appreciate it. Phil's here as well. Phil Henry. So yeah, some crazy stuff going to be going on. with the Crystal Palaces. Photos, and I've got video actually of something that it's a location of one of the Crystal Palaces that I found in a place that, even though I just mentioned earlier that pretty much every big city in Canada you can think of had one of these. There's a couple of exceptions. I couldn't find one for Winnipeg, but I did find one for a town that doesn't seem really all that big. So that's kind of odd. And I found some video footage from, when is that from? The teens? The 20s? Just quickly double check that. Oh, yeah, that's right. 1919, just after the end of WW1. Oh, yeah, that's right, because there's a parade in the video with some soldiers, and they're dedicating a monument to fallen soldiers and whatnot. Anyway, so photos to look at and a video to look at. And speaking of video, of course, midway through the show, I'll give you a sneak peek at your midweek. Coming up for Wednesday, got some rare video of incubator babies from the San Francisco Fair, the World Fair, the Pan Pacific Fair, whatever. Right around the same time period, anyway. And viewer discretion advised, because it's creepy and off-putting. Jabberoo Joe is here. Howdy, howdy. Ancient One's here as well. That's a good point. It's a very good point, Jabberoo Joe. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, we're going to be throwing some stuff. We're not just going to poke holes in the narrative. We're going to throw stones and make some holes in the glass houses narrative. We're going to be throwing more stones at more glass houses than Billy Joel. You may be right. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, we're just having fun. So once again, thank you very much for shooting in. Appreciate it, as always. We like to goof around here once in a while.
All right, we're having a good time. And
so once again, welcome. Title's here. All right, now we can start the show. Welcome, Title. Thanks to all of you for, once again, for shooting in. Appreciate it. Just going to light up my smoke here, eh? Got a smoke and got a coffee. Just going to have a little sip. Oh, yeah. That's delicious. The piping hot coffee there. Yeah. Don't you hate that? Slurping right in your ear. That's why people don't eat in, donut shops anymore. They just take it to go. I'll just go through the drive-through, to hell with it, because they don't want to sit there. Some guy at the table next to you slurping his coffee. Plus you got a bunch of Arabic cab drivers yelling at each other, sitting in one corner. It's not exactly pleasant when you're trying to eat a maple dip donut there, eh? Anyways, links below as mentioned for everything. Some Wikipedia links and whatnots and who's it for the nonsense. Link as well for PayPal if you want to donate to the channel. A lot of people have asked how they could help support the channel financially and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of the best way I could kind of figure to do it, I guess. I don't know. It's the easiest for a guy who's like me, who's not very technically savvy. So appreciate that as well. But the best way really to support the channel is just to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment again if you're watching this after the fact. And speaking of supporting the channel, I mentioned earlier, getting real close to 1,500 subscribers. And what's the big deal? Well, I'm using that as an excuse to do another meetup and then go on walkabout, do a mudflood tour. Last time, did a mudflood walkabout of Stephen Avenue, which is 8th Avenue Southwest, downtown, which was great. It's about, I don't know, 6-ish city blocks of old world buildings, brick and sandstone. Even an old wooden one that survived the Great Calgary Fire. Ending off at City Hall, a beautiful 5-domed building with a lovely clock tower. This time around, doing Inglewood, just there over yonder beyond Fort Calgary there. And again, about 6 blocks-ish of old world brick and sandstone buildings, churches, schools, old fire hall, bunch of old houses. Fantastic. So if you're interested in that, keep your ocular sphericals glued here to the old channel, right? Make sure you do all the things with buttons and things. And keep in touch if you're interested, if you're local, or if you're going to be in Calgary in June, looking at mid-June, because we're figuring we can nail it down to mid-June. I'm sorry I can't give you an exact date yet. It's going to be, depending on weather, and June tends to be our wettest month, but it tends to be the beginning of June. Basically, a guy's rolling the dice on it. But right now, not really carved in stone, like fake dates on old world buildings. Not carved in stone yet, but ballpark mid-June. So if you're interested in joining me, once again, links below, email, and so on. You can get a hold of me. We'll keep in touch. Who knows? Maybe a guy will grab you a coffee or a beer, have a wobbly pop or something. There's plenty to see and do in and around down there. And really, again, it's just an excuse to do a meetup, because it's great to meet up with anyone who's of like mind and interested in this kind of thing. Maybe you're a shutterbug and you want to bring your camera, or you want to film some video footage as well. Great. More the merrier. My goodness, look at this, my old friend from across the pond over in the UK, Dave Evany. Welcome. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much for shooting in and joining a fella. Yes, that would be so great. That would be so great. Or if I lived over there. But alas, I'm over here in the filthy colonies across the great Atlantic. Big fan of Dave's channel. Yes, I guess it is morning for you there, isn't it? It's, or almost, is it? No. Isn't it 11 p.m.? Something over there? I don't know. Anyways, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see Henry as well. Welcome. Thank you. So yes, at the top of the show here, I mentioned I was getting ready. So that's what I was getting ready for, is the meetup for the 1,500 subscribers. Doing some stuff, making some plans, getting things ready. I actually went, I wanted to get some new footwear, right? So by the way, if you're going to be joining me for this thing, wear comfortable shoes now, okay? Don't be wearing no high heels or some leather-soled, wingtip brogue dress shoes now, right? You're going to wear some sneakers or tennis shoes, runners, cross trainers, whatever you want to call it, right? Your Nikes or whatever, something. Maybe some kind of hiking boot. Not that we're going to be off-roading it really, but, it's urban hiking, right? But that's what I want to do, is I went downtown because I wanted to get some new footwear so I can have them all nicely broken in. Not that I buy good shoes, so you tend not to have to break them in. They're just comfy right out of the gates, right from the get-go. But, I wanted to treat myself, so, went downtown.
I'm going downtown, and I'm gonna buy me some new shoes.
You got to treat yourself every once in a while. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Especially for little old me. You know what I mean? Like, I would understand if somebody wanted to save their pennies, then their nickels and dimes to, go and see Martin or Campbell, or if John Levi did a meetup, or any of the other, big shots in the community. No offense, by the way, I'm fans of all aforementioned peoples. You know, Michelle Gibson's going to be doing a big thing coming up, as well as Campbell. And we all just love Martin, don't we? Martin. So, you know. But it is. No stilettos. Well, that counts Joe out. Jabber Joe says I'm out of here. I'm out. But yeah, flights anywhere, you know. Even just flying across Canada. You know, a Canadian like myself, even I'm guilty of forgetting just how big from east to west, west to east, Canada land is, right? Just to fly from Calgary to Montreal, for example, it's expensive. Unless you want to take, you know, a bunch of wonky flight. But if you want to take like a nice, you know, direct flight or fairly direct flight, maybe, I don't know, you hop over to Winnipeg and then Montreal, or maybe Toronto, Montreal, something. But you can get direct flight. That's, you know, it's a lot out of a guy's wallet. I'll say that, right? So it's rough on the old bank account, you know. Granddaddy passes away, you know, goes to that big old farm in the sky or whatever. You know, it's like $900 return. Because it's, you know, a dang old thousands and thousands of miles across the country there, eh? Never mind, you're taking into account up north, right? Where you get the northern coast there, the Arctic Circle up there's, you know, by the North Pole, where Santa Claus lives. Because Santa Claus is Canadian, eh? So, or at least that's where his workshop is. Gets all kinds of tax breaks from Trudeau. Anyway, once again, thanks for joining me. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm rambling on here, so let's get this thing going. Once again, welcome everybody on the HooTubes, on the Rumbles. Speaking of rumbling, something going on with the building here. There's some thumping going on. I think there's a suite here that's being renovated, so that's fun. Doesn't disturb a guy at all when he's trying to do a live stream. We've got to change it up. It can't always be sirens and trains, right? Sometimes it's got to be, sounds like an earthquake. So just quickly here, how I sort of stumbled onto this whole thing. I'll just share this with you. It's from Wikipedia. It's just a sort of a brief, quick overview of the Dominion exhibitions. You know, Canada. You know, is you know, the Dominion of Canada, right? It was a Dominion, a protectorate of, you know, the British Commonwealth, so on and so forth, part of the Commonwealth. Anyway, so we had not World Fairs, but Dominion exhibitions. And they were held in Canada from 1879 to 1913, you know, then the war broke out. And basically after that, not much going on. So basically a lot of these cities that hosted these Dominion exhibitions had these beautiful old world buildings. For example, at the what's called the CNE, which is the Canadian National Exhibition, which is in Toronto, and that has a lot of these old world buildings, like these crystal palaces, for example. And that's how I sort of stumbled across this. But just old world buildings like this as well, right? This is the Prince's Gate at Exhibition Place there in Toronto. You know, the site goes back to an old fort and whatnot. And, you know, there they had a crystal palace, you know, and as mentioned, when I was researching the hokey kind of story that has to do with the Crystal Palace in Toronto, it shares a lot from the hokey narrative of the Crystal Palace in London, England. Not London, Ontario, eh? London, England. But the Crystal Palace. When we say Crystal Palace, if anyone's even heard of it, first of all, people outside of our community or what have you, right? Normies or whatever. If they've even heard of a Crystal Palace, this is what they would think. The Crystal Palace, 1851, London. Originally built in Hyde Park, and then they apparently disassembled it, moved it, and expanded upon it. And then it burnt down, so they had to rebuild it, if I'm not mistaken. So that's wacky in itself. You can see it there in all its glory. And we've all seen many, many pictures and postcards, stamps, and whatnot that have to do with this thing, because it was glorious, but it does have a hokey narrative. The fact that it was built out of glass, all these panels being glass, hence, Crystal Palace. This early time period when sheet glass for windows and whatnot was very, very difficult to make and wasn't really being made locally or something. Hadn't really developed on a mass scale to be able to fit the narrative of the construction of this. Oh, there goes the train. There you go. So we go from earthquakes and vibrating like sounds from the renovations in the suite below me to a freight train going by. Ambulance ain't far behind, I'm guessing, or fire engine or police car. There'll be some sirens. Anyway, we're all familiar with this, right? So when I was looking into the Crystal Palace that's in Toronto, I was finding all kinds of wacky stuff. And the thing that struck me the most, and I mentioned this on the past live stream about the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto, and this Crystal Palace that's there, was that the narrative is almost identical to the. You hear that? That's nice. The narrative is almost identical to the Crystal Palace in London. It was originally built one location, then it was moved, then it burnt down, and then they had to build another one. And again, on such an early time period. 1858 for the first version, right? So that raised some red flags for a fella. Well, and that's the question that I would like to pose to all of you, and I've heard this theory too, is it possible that these Crystal Palaces were old world greenhouses of some sort? You know what I mean? And that's why, again, I was shocked but not surprised, as I usually am when I'm looking into this kind of thing. In researching this, that there was at least 5 that I could find here in Canada alone. And I'm like, well, then maybe pretty much every major city in Canada had a version of this, depending, again, on the size of the city. It would depend on the size of the Crystal Palace or the greenhouse, right? And to get it, they would grow produce. Maybe, maybe there's small orchards in there. They would grow fruit and vegetables. And to get it to some of the smaller towns and smaller cities, they were connected, as we found, and I found them shown on this channel. They had these interurban streetcar and rail systems, like electric trams that connected smaller cities and towns, up to 50 miles away, to the main cities, which were sort of the main hub, right? And that was the case here in Vancouver, in Toronto, in I think a couple of other areas, a couple of other cities in Canada. So, what's to say that the produce couldn't have been grown in these giant crystal palaces or greenhouses and distributed throughout the city? People could come and get them, and a lot of these cities had large markets too. We've seen these old world market buildings, public markets that are like 3, 4 story stone and brick buildings. And people that lived outside the city in smaller cities or towns, well, the produce could be shipped to them on these electric tram or streetcar, interurban streetcar systems. Much like today, rail and semi-trailer trucks, 18-wheelers are used to ship food around. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that they would be greenhouses, and that, yeah, potentially the yield of the size of the produce, your tomatoes and whatnot, tomato, potentially would be larger. We've seen photos. What channel is it? The one that did the whole Cabbage Patch Kid orphan thing. Was that Mine Unveiled, I think? Anyway, Conspiracies Are Us, one of them channels. Anyways, I can't remember. Forgive me. But the point being that in those postcards and other printed material that was shown on that channel to do with the Cabbage Patch, the cabbages were huge. Heck, I got a picture of my granddaddy with the pumpkins that he used to grow on their little farm. And they were so big that when he would win the contest, and inevitably every year he would win this pumpkin growing contest, he would donate the pumpkin to the church. Well, it took 4 guys in a forklift to lift it into the back of a truck because the pumpkin would be like 4 feet high. Pictures of my granddaddy standing behind it, just kind of leaning on it. You know what I mean? Looking over it. Somebody on the other side's taking his photo. He's got this big goofy grin on his face. Massive pumpkin. Like 10 times the size of a pumpkin you see at the supermarket. Everybody always used to ask him all the time, "What's your secret? What's your secret?" And he used to say the same thing all the time. Good soil, the compost, a bit of manure mixed in the compost and the soil, and a little bit of miracle grow. Now, I don't know if I necessarily agree with the miracle grow part, but if it worked for granddaddy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of a thing. So, of course, this, okay, there we go. Thank you, Hippie. Of course, it's all speculation and whatnot. But you get what I'm coming from, and I definitely think that there's something to it because of the fact that, and I haven't really, to be honest, I haven't looked into any other parts of the realm. I just looked in Canada. I'm a Canadian. I tend to try to keep the show and the content on the channel in general fairly skewed to Canadian, but not 100% Canadian content. But I mean, I don't know, across the UK or across other countries in Europe or other countries across the realm, could there have been multiple, what are known as crystal palaces or glass palaces or whatever, exhibition palaces, whatever you want to call them, right? Montreal even had a crystal palace, of course. Montreal had that beautiful Bon Secours market, which was a public market. And I've shown that on the channel before. But it also had this beautiful crystal palace. And that sort of telltale tip-off, on the front of it. We'll have a look at photos later in the show, and we can zoom in on them. But, this sort of arched glass, like a half of a somatic window that we would see in a church almost. And it has that sort of a pinwheel glass inlay pattern on it. Of course, they played hockey in there. The Canadians are going to play hockey in their Crystal Palace, eh? But, they're usually associated with exhibitions, whether it's a trade exhibition, an industrial exhibition, or a world expo of some kind. I'll have to forgive that rumbling in the background. Again, they're doing some renovations in the suite below me, I think. Anyway. So once again, links for everything in the description box down below there, eh? For all of this stuff. But the more I looked into it, the more I'm like, wait, this place had a Crystal Palace too? Wait, this place had one? Like, for example, Hamilton, Ontario had a Crystal Palace. Now, one could argue, well, of course, that whole area is heavily populated. Toronto's there. Toronto had one. But Hamilton's it's pretty far-ish from Toronto. It's kind of its own thing. But they had a Crystal Palace there too. And we touched on it briefly. Chris from Old World Exploration and I touched on it briefly on our Knucklehead show. So the Crystal Palace was built in 1859 to 1860. So, a year to build this big dome with a cupola or glass palace. The cost of 21 grand. It's on 12 acres of land. Built mainly to house provincial exhibitions. See, it's always some exhibition for some reason. And then held yearly in rotation in 4 cities in Canada West. Going back to these more regional exhibitions, I guess. The Hamilton Exposition was opened September of 1860. There's your sirens. There's your sirens, Terry. Because, you got to have sirens. Because, well, it's Friday. And when it's Friday, you're going to have shenanigans and then sirens. It's just how it is. It's just how it is. So the Hamilton Exposition was opened in 1860. So I guess they got her done just in time. Just in the nick of time so that old Eddie, Prince of Wales, could come in and make an appearance with the Hamilton's first Philharmonic Orchestra. Grounds were often referred to as the Great Central Fair, not to be confused with the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto. So maybe there was some competition going on there. Probably. 1862, when British troops were quartered in Hamilton, the Crystal Palace was used as barracks. Oh yeah, heard that about also the some of the buildings at the CNE in Toronto. 1877, the city purchased 14.5 acres of the property. When the Crystal Palace was pulled down in 1891, name was changed unofficially to Victoria Park in honor of Queen Victoria. This land was then given to Parks Board in 1900. So they tore it down. Idiots. Howdy, Bernie. Bernie's here. So yeah, Hamilton had one. Hamilton had a Crystal Palace. And today, sure, again, Hamilton is that whole sort of in that lower Great Lakes region, right? Just outside of, major American centers, right? Like Detroit and Chicago and New York. Like it's not far to get from Hamilton or Toronto or Montreal into some of these big major centers. So I guess by consequence, Hamilton would grow, become quite big in its own right. But, when I first caught wind of that, I was like, huh, okay, well, okay, maybe Hamilton makes sense. But then Kingston had one too. And I'm like, okay, well, Kingston is a little bit more far flung ish. And they have one. So I'm like, well, geez, man, like who didn't at this point? Right? Like who didn't have this is from an article that I found on the kingstonist.com. It's the Kingston Crystal Palace. Thought there's in the 20s, they're playing baseball outside this thing, but it's this big, huge, the whole front of this thing has big, giant windows, glass windows. All of this tower is glass windows. But the Crystal Palace, built in 1856, the Kingston Crystal Palace was the first one built in Canada, in Kingston, not Toronto or Montreal, or even Halifax, right? One of Canada's earliest cities by the narrative, but no, in Kingston. And again, nothing against Kingston. It's a fine town. Produced one of my favorite bands, Tragically Hip. They're from Kingston. They're all modeled off the original Crystal Palace that had been erected for the 1850s. So again, there's that World Exhibition in London, yada yada. They all modeled after that one, apparently. This one was built only 5 years later. I guess news traveled pretty fast. I guess it was a world exhibition. And again, Canada's part of the Commonwealth, so okay, I guess news would travel and they would kind of model it afterwards. But yeah, maybe it was well, it's an odd sport to play in and around or outside of a Crystal Palace. Baseball. I mean, why not build a golf course there while you're at it? Or like that one in Montreal, they played hockey in there. Pucks, they don't fly at 90 kilometers per hour or anything like that. It's fine. Or is it 90 miles an hour? I think it's 90 miles an hour. Anyway, either way, it's fast. Frozen hard compressed rubber in a disc shape, shooting at glass. Yeah, the puck's going to win every time, eh? But it's, yeah, now that you mention it, seems odd that oh yeah, they had to link Victoria's name to everything. Of course. Everything. And here in Canada too. I mean, we still have Victoria Day, long weekend, right? Where we celebrate Queen Victoria's birthday. She's been dead and gone for a rather long time now. It's pretty safe to guess. So then I thought, well, I mean, surely there can't be any more Crystal Palaces out east, right? I mean, Montreal, Toronto, and then Toronto's burnt down. Well, they moved it, disassembled it, moved it, and rebuilt it in a new spot and expanded it, and then it burnt down, and then they rebuilt it and expanded it again. But Montreal, Toronto, Kingston, figure, well, okay, the East is covered. But no, Hamilton's got to get in there. Hamilton was there. And I'm thinking, well, okay, this is silly now. I mean, we're just getting silly. I found this other link here. I'm just finding it. So this one kind of was a shocker to me. Now, this is a PDF file that I found. Let me just share that as well on the screen here. One sec. There it is. So a palace, Crystal Palace in Canada. So in the first months of 1851, the Illustrated London News devoted a number of pages in every issue to preparations for the upcoming Great Exhibition, gathering the excitement of the Crystal Palace, blah, 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 Hyde Park, yada, 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 right? So then they include a bit of a photo here as well. And I was able to grab, again, some of these photos and others so we can zoom in on them a little better. Basically, that's the same thing. Okay, you know, this one was built in London, and everybody went gaga over it and started building crystal palaces all over the place within the next 2 to 5, 7 years, maybe. Everybody had to have one. Became the newest thing, apparently. We got to have a place to play baseball outside of and hockey within and have all these exhibitions. So we got to have this Crystal Palace too. So, of course, you know, people went crazy for it. So in Kingston, Ontario, City Bookstore announced the arrival of the London Art Journal with the illustrated catalog of the exhibition in September of 1851. So this one here is a Crystal Palace in Victoria, British Columbia. That was news to me. Victoria is famous for its gardens, though. City gardens, you know, flower gardens, but also people's private residential gardens. Unfortunately, when fair buildings have been called crystal palaces, whether properly or colloquially, they've been marginalized as architectural imposters. I'm not sure why that quote is there, but okay. So here's your famous Crystal Palace in London, right? And even New York got in on the act. There's one in New York City, New York. Place so nice, they named it twice. So then, you know, they get into, well, Dublin then had it, New York, Munich built one, Philly. And by 1860, there were no fewer than 4 Crystal Palaces, so-called. In Canada, by 1891, there were more than a dozen. A dozen. Yeah, I mean, and we're not just talking about, you know, a regular greenhouse like today. I mean, greenhouses today are, you know, pretty substantially large. But these things were behemoths, right? You know what I mean? But Canadians are too quick, sorry, to dismiss their buildings as curiosities. I don't know about that. It's basically like, oh, it's just a passing fad. It was just, you know, one of those things like doing the jitterbug. Just a passing fancy. There's the one in Kingston. And they do go into, you know, some of them were iron framework, others were iron on the main floor, and the upper floors or cupolas and stuff were wood framed. Some were just wood framed, on and on. Some had less glass than others, so on and so forth. So there's the Crystal Palace in Toronto. But this is actually the second version. The first version, these wings weren't as large and didn't have these upper portions. And the center piece here, portion, had a huge tower with a cupola and a dome on it, like this, but really tall. But here's that Hamilton Crystal Palace. So yeah, again, I pose the question, were these basically just really old world, fanciful, aesthetically pleasing, I guess, for lack of a better term, urban greenhouses for the purpose of growing fresh organic produce that could be purchased at or distributed through the public markets of these big buildings we see, and then shipped out in these interurban railway systems? to outlying communities. It would make sense. There's one in Ottawa. This one didn't really count because it's really it's not glass. It's no crystal on it at all. It does have an interesting shape, and you could see how one could replace, I'm guessing that's wooden frame, and then wooden siding. Replace that with glass panels, and boom, you would just have the, basically the same thing as this. Is this the Montreal? Yeah, the Montreal one was quite impressive. Montreal and Toronto, those two were the most impressive. Again, I did not find anything for Winnipeg, but I was hoping that I would, because Winnipeg, to me, was one of those great old world cities. It was a transportation hub, and still to some extent is. And I think it was in the old world was a very important sort of white city or golden old world city. And it wouldn't surprise me if they had something as opulent as this Montreal's Crystal Palace in Winnipeg. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But Fredericton, New Brunswick. Yeah, that's right. New Brunswick. That's pretty fancy. Again, links for this be in the description. And I did manage to grab these photos as well as capture some other photos that we can have a look at. But there you go. There's the version I was talking about with the tower on it. And then London, Ontario, not to be outdone. They had their Western Fair. It just goes on and on. It's ridiculous. Here's another one in Ottawa, a different one than that first one. Look at this thing. Looking kind of Moorish in some respects. Yeah, good point. Or all of the above, right? All of the above, But yeah, they were definitely massive buildings, Definitely massive. Is that the end? Yeah, so that's the end of this one. And then, of course, they, mentioned Chicago and, some of the other more notable fairs, exhibitions, and buildings, right? But it's like Canada had more than five. Like 5 is what I could find photographs of that I would, again, classify as a glass or crystal palace, right? There's enough glass on her to say, yeah, okay, that's and even one of those I kind of let slide, but obviously some are no longer around, and most actually are no longer around, and some there's hardly any photos even by that online PDF document, right? Just not much in the way of photographs. It's just crazy. So again, with the whole glass thing, though, I did find this, and again, link in the description for this as well, but I did find this civilization.ca. It's a Canadian website, historymuseum.ca. Just talking about glassworks, and the first recorded production of glass in Canada occurred 1839 in the Mallory Town Glassworks in Ontario. But I think they're talking more this type of glassworks, right? Earliest known Canadian glass is a carafe, which is free blown pale green glass, lily pad pattern. But it wasn't until about they're very vague here, a big, huge 20-year window, but between 1840 and 1860, window glass and bottles were being made in 5 Canadian glassworks in Quebec and Ontario. So in the next 20 years, basically 4 more, in addition to this first one, 4 more glass factories opened in Quebec and Ontario. And they started producing window glass in, I'm guessing, I mean, at the earliest, again, it's really vague, 1840 and between 1840 and 1860. So they're saying at the earliest, 1840 for window glass to 1860. Well, some of these buildings were built in 1861, so whew, they just made it, 1862, 1870s. So they just squeak in under the wire, I guess. So, of course, Montreal, big glass works, and Ontario, Toronto, Ontario, or in and around Toronto would have major glass works as well. So again, cutting it real close. I mean, the very first Crystal Palace wasn't long after that. Which one was that? The one in Hamilton? Yeah, the one in Hamilton. 1860. It was built between 1859 and 1860. And then window glass was produced at factory and or factories that were being constructed between 1840 and 1860. So that they just get it in that 1860 date on the timeline. So yeah, that's cutting it pretty close. I think that was the earliest one, right? Was the one built in Hamilton, or was it the one built in Kingston? Sorry, I'm just reviewing this here. So I just want to double check those dates. (1856) was the first one built in Canada. 1856 for the one in Kingston. So it was built 4 years before the 1860 window of 1840 to 1860 for the glassworks factories, and also that 1860 completion date of the one in Hamilton. So yeah, Kingston was the first one, 1856. There it is right there. Built in 1856. The Kingston Crystal Palace was the first one built in Canada. And again, 1840 to 1860 was the timeline for when they were making window glass in and around Ontario, Toronto, Ontario. So, okay. It's close. Very close. Yeah, transparent aluminum from Star Trek. That's right. Theories that it was some kind of clear metal for the the glass was maybe not glass. Well, maybe, I mean, the old world glass of what we call glass that was in windows, the old world glass is different than today's glass, right? No matter how large or small the sheet of glass is that's in a large or small window. The glass that's in modern windows tends to be very uniform, very, I don't know, like smooth. Like it doesn't distort when you're looking through it. Whereas the old world glass didn't have that sort of smooth, uniform clarity, for lack of a better term, right? It was sort of rippled a bit. Almost like when you're out in the heat and you see the mirage rising off the hot blacktop of the road or the highway, or even out in the desert, right? I see mirages out in the Badlands here in Alberta on a hot summer day, just like Lawrence of Arabia, or some fella like that. But anyway, so maybe it was something not only in the method in which glass was produced back then, but what the glass was composed of. Maybe the main ingredients haven't changed, but maybe there were things that we had now that they didn't add back then that gave the glass different properties, rather than just being a sort of a, for the most part, transparent barrier and protection, right? Maybe it served an additional function, or maybe they added something to it in the old world that we do not add to the glass today. I don't know. Again, I'm just spitballing. A guy's just kind of kicking some ideas around, eh? I don't know. Rothrod's is saying, like the glass they brought down to Butte, Montana for Finland's and other the glass hot springs. Oh, yeah, like when they build those sort of hot springs, bath houses and health retreats around natural hot springs. Yeah, did the same thing here in Banff. In the Rockies there, but rather than building a glass, well, actually, no, some parts of it had huge arches with glass windows in it, but they built a big stone, or supposedly they say they built a big stone structure around it, an enclosure around the pool, and then sort of a guest house where you could you go in and you change into your your sunbathing suit, or your hot springs attire. So who knows? Definitely no doubt the health benefits of hot springs, mineral hot springs, for sure. I mean, to this day, these places, you go there and you just kind of soak in this naturally hot, high mineral content hot springs. And it's proven to have health benefits. I mean, doctors can't deny it. People do it all the time, and there's a measurable difference, not just in your physiological health, but your mental health too. Right? Like, that's why the Swedes are so chill, because they take all them saunas all the time. You get them those massages, right? They sit in a sauna for a while there, and then they get a massage. They're just so chill and relaxed over up there in the Scandinavian countries. Well, except for the Vikings. I think they were maybe a little wound up. I don't know. If the stories are to be believed, I don't know. The Norsemen maybe, on a different wavelength or something. I don't know. Anyways, that's pretty much what I have for all those links. And again, links below. Well, one other link, but we'll look at that when we come back. I think what I'm going to do here is take a quick break, do a mid-show break, and give you a sneak peek at your midweek for this upcoming Wednesday. Your vintage footage video, as per usual, every Wednesday. And this one, again, viewer discretion advised. Incubator Baby, some rare film. It's very, very short film. It's only about 1.5 minutes long, including the intro and the outro. So it is what it is, but it's what was there that I could grab and edit and share with you. So again, it's a little creepy and off-putting, but it's not often seen. It's got that quack doctor that supposedly invented those incubator chambers as well, baby incubators. So yeah, again, viewer discretion advised. 1.5 minutes, and then we'll be right back. So stick around.
in Alberta, where they caught a hell for a basement.
All right, and we are back. So, yeah, there you go. As mentioned, yeah, not well, that situation wasn't the best, I don't think. Like, yeah, creepy and off-putting. It's in hindsight, the choice of music that I put with it probably wasn't the best either. Well, I mean, it was very appropriate with its creepiness. Yeah, 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 yeah. But sure, you know, there you go, Mom. Gotta have a little bit of fun now and again. So if you're just joining us here on the shenanigans that we call the New West Reset live show, that's exactly what this is. So welcome. Thank you very much for shooting in and joining a fella here for another one, another live stream. New West Reset Live, episode 62 here tonight. We're looking at the Crystal Palaces, plural. That's right. Crystal Palaces of Canada. There wasn't, you know, one that they moved and then it burnt down, so they built another one. There wasn't two. There wasn't 4 or 5 or even 8. No, we just went for like a dozen, eh? Just like when you get a box of donuts at the donut shop, you just say, "Hey, give me a dozen to go there, eh, buddy?" And he's like, "All right, what kind do you want there, eh?" Give me 2 maple dip, 2 jelly filled, chocolate glaze. Give me a couple of those. Give me a couple of old fashions, a Boston cream, a cruller, an apple fritter. And give me one of them with the sprinkles on them. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, not that one. That one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That one. Yeah, yeah. There you go. Thanks, buddy. I don't know who invented donuts, but I like to think it's Canadians, but probably not. It's probably a Dutch thing. I want to say it's a Dutch thing, but either way, Canadians could be ranked. Tim Hortons aside, because Tim Hortons donuts ain't what they used to be. All right, don't believe the Tim Hortons hype with the Canadians with the Timmies. All right, Canadians consume a lot of Timmies out of the convenience of it. There's one on every freaking corner in every city, town, or village that you visit from coast to coast to coast. So, you know, a guy or gal can't help themselves. It's right there. Oh, there's a lineup. That's okay. There's another one right there. Ah, it's closed. But there's one right over there. Ah, okay, excellent. Let's go in, eh? But it's not the best. You guys still got to go to them small, independent mom and pop donut shops that have been there since the 50s or 60s or 70s or whatever. That's where it's at. Then you get yourself some pretty mean donuts. Anyway, I'm babbling. Rothrod says, on the road again. Have a nice evening, everyone, or morning. You as well, buddy. Take care out there. Thanks for shooting in. Appreciate it. Always good to see you. Enjoying the content, by the way. Shout out to Rothrods LLC. Speaking of content, Dave Ebony's channel is great for content. Kind of format my boots on the ground videos in the style that Dave does his. That's kind of how I'm a copycat. Right? I kind of fashioned my boots on the ground videos how Dave does it. I just kind of put my own thing to it with the pointing and the Frankie Fingers thing. That was just a thing. I talked with my hands a lot anyway, and it just became a thing. Dave doesn't really do that. He might point at something interesting, but he's more technically savvy than a fellow like me. So he'll rather than goofing around with his fingers, he'll just zoom right in with his zoom on his camera, and he'll take stills too. But yeah, that's basically kind of modeled myself after Dave's channel to some extent, and Streets of Tartaria as well, right? Caleb. Shout out to Caleb. Anyway, I've been jabbering on about photos. What do you say? Well, maybe we have a look at some. Canadian Crystal Palaces folder here. Not tons. I've got about 20-ish photographs that we can have a peekaboo at. I'm kind of going from east to west, but I'm skipping over one place because I want that to be sort of the well, how we say in the French Canada, la pièce de résistance. Oui, oui. And it's this crazy little city or large town that I'm like, wait a second. They have this huge fair and they had a Crystal Palace? Okay. But I'll save that for the end, because that's where I've got some old video footage from 1919 as well. Oh yeah, he's been doing it a long time, and he's coined that great phrase that I've also borrowed from him, a Victorian tart up, right? Where he speculates that a lot of the old world buildings that he sees that are really fancifully ornamentated, that it's an old world building that was found and renovated and reestablished, repurposed, reused. And the Victorians tried to emulate some of the old world buildings that they were finding that were more fanciful, but it was done in sort of a facade where it's just appliqué. It's not real, constructed out of real stone. You tear away that stone foundation and it's brick underneath. I've shown that on my channel too. But yeah, he's been doing it a long time. He's just kind of a nice guy, very chill. Anyway, got some photos here queued up. Going to start it with the Halifax exhibition in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Let's see where we got here. There we go. Let's get me in on the corner here. Hello. Obviously a postcard or a rendering of some sort. Now this one, you gotta kind of let it slide as a Crystal Palace. It's actually their exhibition building, but it's known as a Crystal Palace, and it's just because of these huge windows all in a row on all 3 floors. There's actually a lower floor here that we can't really see, just down beyond this fence, because you can see it slopes upward. So I think it's a partially uncovered mudflood building, perhaps. But you can see here that there's another set of windows, large windows like this here. And you've got what appears to be... Now, I don't know if these rotate as part of an airflow system, or if it's just tricking my eye and it's stained glass, a couple of different colors, 2-3 different colors maybe. So I'm seeing it here too, but in a different array. But here I'm not. And it looks like that's the light source coming from over here and hitting this. So I don't know. But initially when I looked at this, I thought, okay, maybe those could be, fans that they're circulating air in or out, but maybe it's just stained glass. But either way, it's pretty fanciful with all these different angles to put on this roof line. Here they've got their ether fencing. It does have appears to be a brick, I guess what they would call a chimney. You got pediments here above these windows, and not only do you have these difficult angles, but then you've got this sloping little hip at the bottom of this roof line. Of course, you got to put all of this on, all four corners of the building. It's quite lovely. This is the interior of the Halifax Exhibition Building. There's another photo of this, but it's been photo manipulated, where they've just cut in and pasted a bunch of people ice skating in here. So I don't know, taking their cue from Montreal, maybe. Let's play some hockey inside a glass palace or Crystal Palace building. But yeah, apparently they could flood the floor and refrigerate it and play hockey in there. I guess in the winter, they would just open up all of these windows and doors and it would freeze. Yeah, and again, yeah, much like the interior of some of the World's Fair buildings or the interior of armories or even some railroad stations, Yeah, yeah, because it was just a what do you call that? A collage. So this is that one in Fredericton, New Brunswick, of all places. And again, no slight against Fredericton or New Brunswick. It's just not a big city. No, none of the cities really in the Maritimes or in New Brunswick, Newfoundland, like that whole eastern area, eastern Atlantic states. None of the cities are really that big. I mean, Halifax and St. John's, maybe, but not huge. I mean, Fredericton is old. It's been there a long time by the narrative. But look at this thing. Just incredible. I mean, Palace, yeah, Palace, all right. Then, of course, you got these crappy wooden fence here. I don't even know what's going on here. They just got like wooden fencing all around it and crappy dirt roads. But then this beautiful, majestic, like with what in the hell is going on here? With all of this. There's a big, I don't know, mercury ball, maybe. It's, I don't know. Some crazy statue here of, gets kind of picoulated. I don't know. Mermaid, or is that maybe a woman with some kind of headdress holding up a sword, or I don't know. Golf club, hockey stick. I don't know, eh? It's probably a hockey stick there, eh? But I mean, this is incredible. Fredericton, New Brunswick. Here's the interior of their crystal. They call this Crystal Palace. It's a big, huge arched glass window. And all of these big windows, again, like 3-4 floors, big dome. It's crazy. Look how big it is in here. And these are big, huge statues here, all this artwork exhibiting paintings and looks like furniture here, the usual stuff, right? They just pile that stuff in and, hey, come look at this old stuff we found. I mean, we made. So this is the Montreal Crystal Palace. Again, you crappy wooden fences to offset the beauty of the old world opulence. And again, very reminiscent of Hyde Park, London. Then you got your wooden buildings here. All right. It's huge and exquisite. Absolutely exquisite. There's another shot of it. 1866. Again, you get that sort of pinwheel portal around window, big, huge arched windows. And again, that big glass, almost church-like, semicircular, somatic, I don't know what, just beautiful glass inlay. And, I guess no Canadian Crystal Palace would be complete without a wooden fence, eh? Oh, it's made out of maple for sure, eh? We just cut down some maple trees after we suck all the maple syrup out of them. And we'll make some maple wood fences, eh? It's the same people that built this, built that, I guess. I don't know. Kingston. So again, playing baseball outside this thing. As mentioned, I was able to grab some of these from those websites. Again, links below, by the way, for those PDF files and the websites. So this is the Toronto Crystal Palace, 1890s-ish. This is Crystal Palace Mark 1 or version 1 in its original spot before being dismantled and moved, which, yes, does sound familiar. Set up on what was originally a fort, and then this is now, this is still in its place. This crazy looking obelisk thing still there. But this is no longer there. It was moved, and then it burnt down. And then it was rebuilt. This is nice. There it is from another angle. Again, I guess this is how you know, okay, we're going to designate this a crystal palace or a glass palace, because it's going to have this. MODOK in the box. Howdy, howdy. Good to see you. Welcome. This is version 2. 1890s. But after it was moved, but before it was burnt down. You see where I'm getting at? This, and then it was moved, and then you get this. And then it burns down. Or maybe this is post-fire? No, I think it's pre-fire. But post-fire looks the same, but larger. Just like England. Another angle. There's lots of shots of this. You can find this one and the one in Montreal all over the place. But some of the other ones are tough to find, or they aren't there at all. Here's that one in Hamilton that I grabbed from that website. Beautiful. I mean, even this, not just the arched glass windows here and here. I mean, that's beautiful enough, but quiet down with that siren now. You're going to shatter all this here glass. Trying to do a show here. Get rumbling, get sirens. Here it is this is her hind end. This is her keister. This is the back side of it. Just as fancy. Or almost as fancy. Wowee, man. Of course, a dome with a cupola, with a dome. Here's another splendid mind bender. This is the one in Victoria, Vancouver. This is the Victoria Crystal Palace. My goodness gracious. This thing looks like it belongs in Eastern Europe. Absolutely ridiculous. It's again the one I grabbed from that website, but it gives you a little bit of a different angle. You can just see all the cupolas and domes, and they just got silly with it. Silly. And even an interior shot of the Victoria Crystal Palace. Again, looking very much or very reminiscent of, the World's Fairs, Chicago and San Francisco and London, New York, Paris, all over the realm, right? That's right. Neuromass is the same style from coast to coast. Yeah, and from country to country, it seems. Again, depending, on the country and where in the country may depend on the size and scale and maybe how much glass is used. But this is incredible. And they just pack it in. Like it's just all this bric-a-brac and junk. White Swan Cottage, White Swan soap. It's the White Swan soap exhibit, I guess. It's just crazy. All right. So here's what I was getting at. In fact, I'm going to just stop sharing this for a second. And I'm just going to open up the Wikipedia on this. The website that I have here. Bookmarked. Now, this is a place called Picton. And this was the one that I was like, wait, what? Picton? And, just for some context, actually, I'm going to just take you to Picton here on the Goggle Maps so you can see where we're at. Just share this here with you. All right. So here's Kingston, which we looked at, and Toronto, right, for some of those crystal palaces. Hamilton is, where is it? It's down here somewhere. Anyway, there it is. But Picton is right here where it says Prince Edward. That's Picton. Just there it is. There we go. This is Picton right here. This little area. There it is, Picton. Quaint downtown and the Macaulay Heritage Park. Historic vibe. Okay, just this little place right here down in this little bottom of this little, I guess, part of the Southern Ontario Peninsula here on Lake Ontario. It's really kind of nowhere near anything, really. I mean, Kingston is way over here. As I mentioned, Toronto and everything's way over here. So it's just this tiny little place right here. So now let me show you what the heck is going on over in Picton. This is from militarybruce.com, Picton's Historic Crystal Palace. Okay. Some kind of Canadian, there's the Royal Canadian Air Force. I guess this is the guy who wrote the article. But anyway, look at this place. The historic southern Ontario town of Picton dates back to the early days of British North America. First settled in 1780s by United Empire loyalists who fled north during the American Revolutionary War. Oh, so it was founded by Americans that were loyal to the British, I guess. Okay. Town was named after Lieutenant General Sir Thomas Picton, second in command to the Duke of Wellington at the Battle of Waterloo. One of the more striking historic buildings in town is the Crystal Palace, built in 1890 by Frank T. Wright at the Picton Fairgrounds. It's a scale version of Sir Joseph Paxton's original Crystal Palace in London, England. Of course it is. Unlike Paxton's original, which was built using cast iron, Picton's version is a wooden structure. Okay, there you go. So again, and then they go in more into the Hyde Park, and people went crazy for it. And then Picton joined in with Kingston, Napanee, Toronto, Montreal. Picton wanted to be up there with the big boys of Halifax and Ontario, or Toronto and Montreal and Victoria. And little Picton was like that small dog with the big dog in the Bugs Bunny cartoon. Hey, Spike, we gonna get a cat? Are we, Spike? Huh, Spike? Just run along beside him trying to keep up. But they kept up all right. I mean, wood frame or not. Very, very impressive structure there in a little town of Picton. So now, let me get back to the photos, because I've got some photos of just a couple, mind you, but got some photos of that Picton Crystal Palace. And then I've got the video file that I've got is of the Picton Fair. And in a couple of the, quite a few of the shots, you can see this Crystal Palace in the background. Obviously, going back a ways, and again, sorry, it's a tiny photo. It's actually a photo of a photo. So it's super tiny. So if I, the usual, get some pixelation going on here, but gets very pickulated. You can see it's a large structure. I mean, there's your horse and buggy here in front. So, two generous floors, ample ceiling height. Everybody's dressed up. There's all the old-timey gear. But there's a better shot of that one from the website here. So we can really blow it up pretty good. So again, wooden frame, but they still Picton's today has got I don't know, 30, 40,000 people. He says that he's got a Picton Castle near where you live. Whoops, wrong link. I'm not surprised that there's a Picton in the UK. I mean, a lot of areas in Canada are named after places in the UK. England, most especially, but not exclusively. Especially here in Calgary, for some reason, there's a lot of Scottish names. They say we had a lot of Scottish settlers because of the Northwest Mounted Police. A lot of them were Scotsmen. But yeah, I thought this was pretty impressive for this little rinky-dink town of Picton. But they had, there's a track here. They had equestrian racing, like horse racing. They had horse jumping. They had dog races. They had a big, huge sort of park area, picnic area. And they would have exhibits inside this Crystal Palace. I thought, First of all, I had barely heard of Picton myself. The only reason I even was familiar with it at all is because I'm originally from out east in Quebec. So you kind of get to know a lot of the names of cities and towns and whatnot, in and around your area. But I was shocked. That's why I'm kind of upset that, and I'm going to keep looking. By the way, there's the correct link. Picton Castle in Pembrokeshire. Pembrokeshire, ting ton, ting ton. But I'm going to keep digging because there's got to be something in Winnipeg. Winnipeg had to have at least one. But, only had a couple of days to prep for this thing. So prior to the crappy weather and the snow mixed with rain and rain mixed with snow, it was quite nice. On the weekend, it was exceptionally nice. Friday wasn't bad. Saturday was beautiful. Sunday was very, very warm out. A little bit of a wind, but once you got into the afternoon, it was a warm wind. It was quite nice. Cousin Vinny and I went out to a couple of spots and did some boots on the ground video, kind of up in around the Ramsey area, close to Fort Calgary and close to Inglewood. And it was a really nice day. Yeah, Sunday the weather was beautiful Sunday. And it was just a great day. It was always a good time to hang out. We grabbed some lunch. Well, we got there, grabbed a coffee, walked around for a bit, looked at some stuff. I shot some video footage, went around to a few more places, did some exploring, found a couple spots that I was not aware of, and then visited some spots that I knew were there. Then we had lunch, poked around a bit more, and it was great. So it's a fascinating part of the city, and quite old. The history of it is very closely linked to the railroad, so it was right up my alley. Let's just say that. Yeah, your garden's doing well, hippie. Peas. What else have you got coming up? You had peas coming up, and you had some of your herbs coming up, blooming, right? Or not blooming, but sprouting, whatever, poking out of the dirt. I'm not a farmer. Sorry, I'm not a farmer, so I come from farm stock, not the cattle, that is, but my lineage, but not much of a farmer / gardener myself. I do poke around and meddle with the gardening a bit, some stuff, beans and tomatoes and green onions and stuff. Try to get peppers going. Everybody tells you peppers are easy. No, they're not. Everybody tells you tomatoes are tough. Yeah, ish. Depends. Tomatoes are just fussy. That's all. So you got to be fussy with the tomatoes, and then they're fine. If it says free coffee, how'd you pull that off? Well, that's not. Don't go letting people think that's going to be on the regular or anything now. With for the upcoming meetup. Yeah, we went into this diner, a small local place, there's a Starbucks there, but we were like, yeah, let's go to this local joint here. It's called Red's Diner, I think. Just a couple of coffees to go, please, sir. Guy, poured our coffees, and he's just said, oh, here's some cream and sugar. I'll let you make it how you like to make it. And we're like, okay, cool. Thank you. Whipped up our coffees the way we like them. I go to pay the guy, and he's like, it's on me. Don't worry about it, fellas. Have a nice day. So that had nothing. That was not on me at all, Vinny. That had nothing to do with me. There was no influence or anything like that. What did you think? I walked in there and leaned on the guy or something? Hold his feet to the fire a little bit. Hey, buddy. Hey, you better make good with them coffees and put them on the arm. You know what I'm saying? You better make with the free coffees. I would hate to have something bad happen to your establishment over here or something like that, huh? You mutt, you. So now you know what I'm talking about with the whole New West Reset thing. No. What? No. What I said about Frankie Fingers. That Frankie Fingers a New West Reset of the same. Wait, what?
Oh yeah, she don't stand no cheating. She don't stand none of
that. Bill says, heck, I'll start drinking coffee again if it's going to be free, right? Don't go holding me to that now. That isn't. I don't know. Like I said, man, you just got to be friends with everybody. People helping people. We were kind and friendly and polite to the guy and the staff, right? The wait staff. And, we didn't just come, kicking in the doors and strolling in there like we own the place, right? We did it the typical Canadian way. You default to being polite, courteous, kind, and friendly. Good morning, and how are you? And it's a nice day, and may I have 2 coffees to go, please? And, please and thank you and all that. Yeah, your bartender will appreciate some good manners, especially your bartender, because they always get the people. Some people get happy when they're drunk, and some people get belligerent, so they have to put up with the belligerent drunks. So yeah, you be kind and courteous to your. I sound like I'm a comedian, a stand-up comedian at a nightclub. Hey, be kind to your wait staff. I'm here till the rest of the week. And my Bill Burr over here. Bill Burr over here. From Boston. Eh? Old Freckles. Eh? Old Billy Ballsack. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah, just be kind. Exactly. You don't got to walk up to somebody and go, hey, what's going on there, douche? Give me a couple of coffees before I give you a smack. The guys can be like, kindly vacate the premises, sir. So, yeah. But yeah, it's a nice bonus for sure, And that's why we went back there for lunch and had a couple of $20 hamburgers for some reason. They were okay. It wasn't the best burger I ever had. It wasn't bad. I've had worse burgers, but I've had better burgers. But, $20 burger, put it this way, I didn't talk up the burger to my workmates the next day on the job, Your man, you wouldn't believe the burger that me and Vinny had yesterday. No, that didn't happen. It was fine. Kind of like in like John Travolta says there in Pulp Fiction, right? With $5 shake. It's a milkshake. It's like milk and ice cream. Yeah. And it's $5. Yeah. You don't put no bourbon in it or nothing? No. Right? It's like, it better be a damn good milkshake if it's $5. Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hippie Shake. Yeah. If you care to support the channel and donate, I've got a job, so it's fine. They would just go back into the channel. Maybe pay for, I don't know, bus ticket up to Edmonton. That's pretty much a done deal anyways. But you get what I'm saying. New flashlight. I got to pay for my manicures somehow. Keeping my digits looking all beautiful and presentable. Maybe I'll start getting some French manicures or something. I don't know. Well, yeah, these days every milkshake's $5. Yeah, even a crappy iced milk instead of ice cream milkshake. Because there's a difference, right? Ice milk, yeah, it's okay. But it's not ice cream. Terry says, I'm American from an old colony. I just found out I had an 11th great-grandfather on the first ships to Massachusetts. Huh. It's pretty good. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. He says, Frankie, you were exceptionally friendly with random people you meet. Well, I don't know if I would say, my default setting is just being kind and polite. Well, and you know what? Let's face it too, right? Most especially when I'm out when I'm oot and about. Shut up. When I'm out and about, I'm doing boots on the ground videos, right? Because I've got to definitely be aware of the fact that if it's an old world house, that somebody lives in there, more than likely. And even though I'm on public property, on the street or across the street, or even on the sidewalk right in front of their house, I mean, I'm pointing my phone, hence camera, right at their house, and I'm pointing, and talking to myself, evidently, or essentially, right, or you know, I'll tell you what, if I went out of my suite here onto my balcony on a nice hot summer day and was having, I don't know, a cold one or whatever, and somebody was walking by and they were filming, I'd be like, what's this clown doing? So, I get it. So I got to be aware of that kind of stuff. So I try to be friendly because I've had people come out and say, hey, what do you think you're doing, buddy? The Canadian version of I'm going to act threatening. Hey, what do you think you're doing there, eh, buddy? They still call you buddy or pal. What's going on over here, eh, pal? But he's ready to punch you right in the lips, but he's still calling you his pal or his buddy. That's the Canadian way. But yeah, I've had people basically try to make me eat shit sandwiches for filming, and if you still try to maintain a cool head and be calm and relaxed and fairly polite or courteous, explain to them, hey man, like you got a beautiful home. I love the brick. I love the sandstone. I got a YouTube channel where I film these beautiful old world buildings. I didn't mean to disturb you. I'm on public property, so that I'm not doing anything illegal. And if they're a huge douche, then okay, I shut it off, and all right, I'm gone. And that's that, right? It's happened a couple of times, not often. More often, it's actually these poor lost souls that are hooked on some kind of terrible, dirty drug that are living out in the streets. And, they're battling these addictions, and a lot of them are battling, mental problems, right? They couple of screws loose, right? And, they're screaming and yelling and ranting and raving, standing on a street corner or pacing up and down their carved out turf on the sidewalk or back alley or wherever. So again, if they're aware enough, they definitely don't want to be filmed. They think you're filming them, making fun of them, or I don't know what. I've talked about that before. So you got to be careful. So, I mean, it's not to say that I walk up to every stranger and, hello, friend, how are you today? And just start talking to every stranger. No, but if I'm going to be interacting with somebody, or if somebody gets up to me and starts interacting with me, I'm going to try to default to being friendly and polite. But I don't stop every person in the street. Hello there. How are you today there, eh, buddy? How's your day going there, fella? I'll be like, will you get out of my way? I'm trying to get to work, asshole. That's what dude means here. What's that, Terry? I mean, dude out here in the West, and by the West, I mean Western Canada, like cowboy land. Dude means, like a city slicker. But of course, in modern parlance, the parlance of our times, dude just means like a dude, a guy, a fella. Hey, dude, how's it going, dude? And that just comes from that whole, I guess, surfer, Southern California, I'm assuming, thing, right? We're like, that's why I say be a dude, not a douche. Because a douche is like, a douchebag, like an asshole. So, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Do you need help with something? We did have one, again, a Karen, but a Canadian Karen, distinctly Canadian. It's, instead of getting up in my face and saying, hey, you can't be here, get out of here, I'm calling the police, or I want to talk to your manager. It's basically politely telling me to get lost under the guise of being helpful. Do you need help with something here? Yeah, that lady. Because I was filming she thought I was filming her house, but I was actually filming the house next to hers. Once I just said, "Oh, no, no, I'm fine. I'm just filming some of these beautiful homes." And then she was like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, a potential Karen situation. But yeah, a polite Karen. She wasn't a full-fledged Karen. It didn't take. Somebody tried to make her a Karen, and it didn't quite take. She's like a 80-20. That 80-20 rule. She's 80% Karen. She's not full on Karen. You need help with something. Yeah, dude. This is like a guy. The Terry's saying, "Dude," here means you're getting whooped. Really? Like a dude is like a big tough guy? Is that what you mean? Kind of thought that Canadians use dude in the way that Americans use dude, which is just kind of like bro, almost. You know what I mean? It's like the white surfer version of brother. You know, when our African American friends refer to each other as brothers and sisters, dude is kind of the Caucasian. That's the Caucasian. The Caucasian version of that, I think. Take it easy, kid. It's okay there, young man. It's fine. Well, it's a pejorative term. Okay. Well, originally it was here too. It was kind of an insult to city slickers, you know, like calling somebody a greenhorn. That's why ranches that had people that would come in from the city to spend a weekend or whatever on the ranch out in the foothills of the mountains, you know, to go horseback riding and whatnot, they were called dude ranches. At least that's what I've been told. That's what I've read. That's kind of the story behind that. A dude ranch, sort of a horseback riding ranch for city slickers that come out to the country and they stay in the guest house. You know, they do ranch stuff as a vacation. I've worked on a ranch. Trust me, it ain't no vacation. It ain't easy. Yeah, fella. We say fella here a lot too, fella. We don't say bloke a lot here, though. Bloke isn't really a thing here. Unless they're obviously a English expat. But bloke isn't really a thing. It's like guy. Hey, guy. Hey, dude. Hey, buddy. Pal. But, you know, depending, right? You put a little stank on it and it could be an insult too, right? Like, shut up, pal. Yeah, you better watch your P's and Q's there, buddy. Right? Hey, don't get out of line, fella. That's like geezer. Like geezer in the UK means like a tough guy. Well, he's a right sprite geezer, isn't he? That's a geezer, isn't it? Right, but here in Canada, at least where I grew up, a geezer just meant like an old man. Not necessarily a tough old man, just an old man. He could be frail, he could be tough, he could just average, regular. Just if you were like, I don't know, past the age of 70, 75, something, you know, if you're getting on in years, get along in tooth, then you're an old geezer. Yeah, you might say, like, did you see that tall bloke down the road? Right, yeah. Geezer's a London expression. Oh, okay. Yeah, like when we grew up, we used geezer as an old man. Yeah, see, I always thought that geezer meant like a tough guy. Young or old, but a tough guy. Not necessarily a gangster, but he could be a gangster or organized crime, like muscle guy. You know, street tough, an enforcer. You know, he's some kind of enforcer working for the mob or something. Maybe some kind of guy that's gonna knock your lights out. So what you're saying is Frankie Fingers is New West Reset? Frankie Fingers is New West Reset. I don't understand. Okay, I've been trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you, Frankie Fingers is New West Reset. New West Reset is Frankie Fingers. So it's the same guy. Same guy. Yes, it's the same guy, Mutt. What do you think? I've been trying to tell you. Frankie Fingers, New West Reset. Frankie Fingers, New West Reset. Okay? All right, I got it. Jeez. Londoners or people from Essex use the term geezer for a man. Yes. Bill says I've been called them all. That's pretty good. You're a bunch of clowns there in the box. I'll tell you that. Tell you that right now. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Bless you. Bless all of you. Geez, almost just I'm all right, me is here. Welcome. Howdy. Thanks for shooting in. Fella almost just forgot. I got some video there to share of the Picton Fair 1919. I'm not sure what the big deal is with Picton. We saw it on the goggle maps. There's nothing to it at all. It's just a little tiny little place. It's not like it's a suburb of Toronto or nothing. You know, especially back in 1919 where this footage was taken. But this fair in Picton is such a big deal that the footage I have, I actually edited the thing down a bit where I kind of put it together. So the first bit is actually a small plane kind of flying around, descending, coming in and flying over and doing a couple of flybys over Picton. Okay. And then there was a bit of a sort of a pause in the film. And then I cut in where it's some footage of the parade and the ceremony. And then some of the Picton Fairground. And again, you'll see this Crystal Palace there in the background, 1919. Right after WW1. Obviously, Canada heavily involved in WW1, again, being part of the British Commonwealth and what have you. But yeah, here it is, Picton Fair, 1919. And I'm just going to do the huge here and just kind of talk over the video. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I think you can hear me. It's a couple of beautiful churches there right out of the gate. A couple of big, beautiful houses there as well. Just going to roll it back a little bit. See some huge houses there. Surrounding that couple of there's a sort of cathedral style church and then more of a, where the spire looks removed. Usually a Presbyterian church or Methodist for some reason. Big, huge building right there too. I don't know if that's maybe a school or something. And the plane kind of comes back around again and films a bit more, but you can see even just, you get the main street there. There's another big, huge, what looks like stone building there with two towers or whatever in the front. Then behind that, there's a couple of really huge, what look like masonry buildings of some sort, stone or brick or a combination of the two. It's just it's goofy. It's goofy, man. There's some of the docks, I guess, or the harbor. There's a big school. I think it whips back around again. Yeah, there's that one church. The big, huge building. There's the other church. Like, I don't get it. Like, yeah, okay, beautiful and everything, but what's the deal with we got to get up there with the with an aeroplane and it captured all of this footage? Like, again, looks like a lovely little town, but doesn't look any different than any other lovely Canadian town or any other town in the realm, for that matter, at that time period. So why Picton has this huge spotlight on it is beyond me. So this is part of the opening ceremonies and parade for the dedication to the war memorial. So there's a little bit of footage of that because, everybody loves a parade, even a dead guy, I guess. Kind of not necessarily a fan of celebrating war or anything, but it's a catch-22 because I do believe in honoring those who have been bamboozled into fighting. Obviously, a lot of soldiers are given a different story as to what they're fighting for, and once they get there, they realize, oh, this ain't quite what the recruiting officer said. So different regiments, I would imagine, of different branches of the armed forces, Royal Canadian Air Force and Royal Canadian Navy and Royal Canadian Army. And then there's the unveiling of the statue on top of a big pedestal, of course. And then the brass plays a couple of tunes. And, of course, they lay a wreath with poppies. Then we get a little bit of a parade here, and then there's some footage from the fairgrounds. But again, the houses in the background, like big 2- and 3-story brick houses, big fancy gate and wall there. Like, the heck's going on in this little town? And there you go. That could be it. Yeah, I think there is a military base there. I think there may have been a fort there, but was it a star fort? If it was, I don't think it's there anymore because I didn't find any star forts in Picton when I was researching for my Star Forts of Canada live stream. But could very well be. Anyway, sorry, moving on here. So I believe this part of the parade is actually for the fair itself. It's not part of the military ceremony. I think this is the opening of the Picton Fair. Of course, they will have, the cavalry and whatnot and the marching bands, but I think the unveiling of the memorial was part of the opening ceremonies of the Picton Fair just for this year, right, to end out the war. So then here's some of the fair activities. They're, again, horse jumping, and they had horse racing, harness racing, trick riding like this. These are some of the young cavalry guys doing their trick riding stuff. But there's the Crystal Palace there in the background, just sort of kind of on your right-hand side at the back. But huge fairgrounds. And I mean, look at all the people. I mean, this thing's a big deal. This guy's doing all these tricks, flipping and spinning and flying all over the saddle and stuff. And then they have, a sort of a pageant. And it's, they had other stuff. As mentioned, they had equestrian horse, like harness racing, dog races, and then an exhibition, manufacturing exhibition, industrial exhibition, agricultural exhibition. And then this is just sort of a beauty pageant. But they would also have, you could enter, for best show for your horse as well. Like there was like a horse, whatever they call those, horse show. It's a dog and pony show. It was a fancy dog and pony show is what it was. But yeah, here you decorate your carriage with flowers and go around the track. And it was a whole big hubbub, very, very surprising to me. Picton. I was like, really? Okay. All places. Picton it is. All right. I'm all right. Me says, I've been doing a bit of a dive lately on this subject, but still don't quite understand. Nobody ever gets to a point on most videos and lives, meaning live streams. What do you mean by reset? How would that happen? Can anyone in the chat point me in the direction or explain how a reset could happen? Well, reset's kind of a broad term, right? Kind of like tartaria, really. At least how I use it. When I use the term tartaria or hashtag tartaria, it's more like, like, for example, these crystal palaces, old world inspired or perhaps leftover from the old world pre-reset buildings. And Tartaria is just, was one small empire or country that was in the old world. And, it's very closely associated with some of these extravagant architectural details in some of these old world buildings where its form meets function. The building is so exquisite and so extravagant that it looks like a cog in a machine, or in it itself, the entire building in itself looks like it's a machine or has some other function. A crystal palace may not have just been an exhibition hall. It may have been an old world greenhouse or something else. An armory may have been a dirigible hangar. The pointed tower with a balcony on it on a tall building may have been a airship docking station. And these sorts of things, we just use a catch-all term of Tartaria because it's, again, this extravagance where form meets function. Now, when it comes to reset, again, I use that as a broad term. Not that there was just one reset. I think there were multiple resets. And what I mean by reset is some kind of catastrophe. Don't know exactly what. There are hints that there was perhaps an older, far more extreme catastrophe of some sort, somehow related to maybe an electrical discharge coming up from the ground and sort of charging out along the surface of the realm, or some kind of electromagnetic plasma discharge, some kind of short circuit, almost a power surge, I should say, that sort of thing. And this in turn caused so much damage to the old world that the other checks and balances no longer functioned. And as a result, what would normally be smaller events that could be managed became out of control. Floods and rains and crazy weather and the mud flood, which I think we've seen evidence of all over the realm as well. Now, in my immediate area, and again, I don't know, this is just conjecture. I don't think anybody can say exactly when the cataclysms were. And I think they're cyclical, and I think there was multiple, and they were different in severity. And I think some of them were caused by us, and by us, I mean, human beings that live in this realm, caused deliberately, and I think some were natural, and I think the powers who should not be have perhaps been able to harness the power of some of these natural catastrophes and influence them, cause them, stop them, change them, increase or decrease the intensity to some extent. And again, this is just theory. But sometimes these purposefully launched catastrophic events get out of control, even out of the hands of those who instigate them, if in fact they have been instigated. But as to exactly, again, what and where and when and who, I do not know. Yeah, like we just, it's, well, I mean, I've heard that theory as well, that it's, we're all just living in a simulation theory, as in a matrix style simulation, some kind of extremely advanced biomechanical simulation, or whether we're a simulation in terms of we are a vision or a dream or daydream or a conjuring within the creator's mind. The grand creator, the God, or the great creator, or however you want to label the force that created us into being. Because if he's just kicking back, thinking about us, then we are being created in his mind or in his imagination or in his perception. And therefore, that in some ways could be viewed as being a simulation. Though, again, this is all up in the air, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of theory out there. Oh, howdy. Unacceptable living in left field. Howdy, howdy. Oops, just in. No worries. Always good to see everybody shooting in. Thank you very much. Good to see you as well. Don't worry about it. Whether you've been from the get-go or you're just jumping in now. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. But yeah, I mean, this is all just conjecture, right? We have no idea. But there's definitely architecture that, I mean, even just tonight, we looked at one they said was built in a year, right? One of these fairly large, quite immaculate glass crystal palaces. Now we get that 1 year wonder timeline on much more intricate, elaborate, and much larger masonry constructed buildings. We're not just talking about, iron frame with glass plates stuck in it. We're talking about stone and brick, and then the interiors maybe wood framed, and then the walls are put in with, I don't know, gypsum or sheetrock or shiplap and plaster, depending on what building method and what time period. And then all the moldings and copings and transitions from one room to the other, and ceiling medallions and windows and window treatments and cabinetry and built-in bookcases and all the built-in air exchange systems and passageways and servant staircases and back hallways and you name it, man. Buildings that are the size of state capitals that they say, oh, this was built in a year, or this was built in 16 months or 18 months. And they just don't look like they fit, right? This building is in, Regina, Saskatchewan, here in Canada land, or this building is in like Tulsa, Oklahoma, but it looks like it's out of like old world, I don't know, Prussia, or I don't know, Moorish, and a lot of these buildings, while they look distinct and have some regional distinguishing markings or characteristics, a lot of them share a lot of the overall similarities, right? Like the big arches and portals and extreme angles in the roof lines, domes or spires or both. And again, whether it's in, I don't know, Victoria, British Columbia, or somewhere over in England. Maybe a bad example, because then one could say, well, Canada is a British colony, very strongly influenced by the British. Well, okay, what about, I don't know, some of these cities or towns in South America, and the buildings there look the same as cities or towns in China or in, I don't know, Botswana. Like it's, you know, it's hard to explain. And that's why I say all the time that people in our community, whether you have a channel or whether you do your own research behind the scenes and don't have a channel, we all have a little piece of the puzzle. We just don't know how it fits, but we bring that piece to the table in our own way. And we each contribute in our own ways. Me, I'm very outdoorsy, so I like to, hoof it around my city. I'm fairly familiar with the city I live in and what are some of the older, quote unquote, older areas that might have some of these old world buildings. So I like going out there and spending a couple hours outdoors filming them and kind of thinking out loud and pointing out some of these characteristics that are shared in the architecture, whether it's here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, or somewhere else in the realm. We share a lot of these same hallmarks or benchmarks in the architectural signatures, right? I'm also fascinated with these old world, like old film footage. That's why I will spend hours combing the interwebs trying to find what I call vintage footage that I edit and put to music and put up on the channel every Wednesday, because I get a kick out of seeing how life was in, I don't know, Winnipeg in 1928 or Vancouver in 1914 or, Montreal in 1902 or whatever video footage I can find. The older, the better. You can look at photos, and photos give us a lot of clues, and photos can tell us a lot of fill in a lot of the blanks, I guess. But to me, just the video footage just kicks it up another notch. It just takes it to the next level a little bit. You get to see some street scenes, and you get to see the people walking around and interacting with one another and interacting with their environment. Plus, you get to see all the buildings in the background. But maybe you see a horse and buggy go by, or a streetcar trolley tram thing go by, or something. Maybe you see some kid chasing his dog or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just fascinating. It's fascinating to me. But unfortunately, sometimes, which I think you may have found, I'm all right, me, is the more you dig, the more questions, you think, oh, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And you just end up raising more questions than answers, I think. Right. But again, you got to just keep looking, keep digging, searching for answers. None of us really know. Some people maybe claim that they know, but none of us really know what happened. We're short of being there. And it's hard to, even if you could get there in terms of time-wise, it's hard to know exactly when and where. Even if you could get there, what time do you want to go to? 1850? 1750? Nope, 1700. No, 1800. Nope, 1600. No, actually 600, because they added or subtracted 1,000. You see where it just gets so crazy, right? They've definitely messed with the timeline. Lots of channels specialize in that, I don't know, offshoot of the rabbit hole and do great work on it. Again, we each have our piece of the puzzle. So I don't claim to know. I theorize. It's all just best guess. The only time I claim to know is if I do actually know, right? Like if there's a lot of old buildings the lower 3 feet of the building till you get to the ground level, right? From let's say the sidewalk up about 3 feet, anywhere 3 to 5 feet. A lot of times it looks like big masonry stones, but I often refer to that as a fake or a phony foundation. And I found cases where I've speculated that that's such because the brick goes down into the ground, which is not the ideal way to build a building. You want to build a strong foundation of stone or concrete or something up far enough above ground, and then you build your brick or even wood frame home or building on top of that. Keep it up away from the moisture and the heaving and sinking and rising of the ground, especially here in Canada in the winters, right? It freezes, thaws, freezes, thaws. So a lot of times to hide the fact that these are perhaps older, these buildings are older than they say they are, and they've survived the most recent cataclysm of in and around anywhere from 1700 to 1850-ish, I think is fairly agreed upon, very wide ballpark sort of year. Then they would just smear, cement or concrete or thin set over that brick, and sometimes even stamp in a stencil to make it look like big cinder blocks or big stones. And then say, no, that's the stone or concrete foundation, and we built the brick on top. Then I found examples of that where that crud that they smear over the brick is chipped away, and you can see the red brick underneath it. So in that instance, I will say this for sure is a fake or phony foundation. For sure, this brick goes lower because there it is. You can see it when this crap is chipped away. But if I don't know, I will say I don't know. And I would be aware of anybody who says that they know 100%. That's just my look on it. But yeah, Old World Exploration, friend of the channel, and we have a joint show that we do called the Knucklehead Show, where we explore Old World Canada together. But yeah, he's got a lot of great content on his channel, and he's works in the construction industry, and he teaches construction as well. So he comes at it from as a builder, for lack of a better term. Yeah, let's see. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Reset of energy, power to electricity and fuel. Well, that too, right? That's sort of what I mean broadly by reset. Is after this catastrophe, you have these that are sort of maybe had prior knowledge to the catastrophe, either if it's cyclical and they're in on the secret, or whether they caused or associated with people that caused a deliberate catastrophe. And let's say it's the mudflood, for example, right? So after everything is kind of settled down, then they go in and they reclaim towns and cities building by building, the ones that they can salvage and sort of dig out and get back up and running again, but they don't restore the building to its full previous use. They may make it look identical to how it was, but it doesn't perform the same functions. For example, there's conjecture that churches were similar to how churches are supposed to be today, but they were healing centers, physical and spiritual healing, but not in a house of God sort of a sense, but more of just an overall well-being healing center, perhaps using frequency and that sort of thing through the somatics and the organs and the that sort of thing. Now, after the catastrophe, they reset that church. They renovate it and reclaim it and fix it up, but they're not going to get it back to that old world healing center if that was indeed what its previous purpose was. They'll just redesignate it as, this is a church, or some other building used to serve some other function. Oh, now it's a school. Then there's a lot of conjecture about what groups are coming in and are involved with reclaiming some of these cities after catastrophes and resetting the timeline, essentially, or resetting the population in that now fixed up area after the cataclysm, whether it's a small town or a city or even an entire sort of urban area, with a few cities, or even a giant swath of land, what we call now in the US, a state. right? Like, oh, they've moved west, and now this area has become the state of whatever, Oklahoma or whatever, or up here in Canada, province, right? Like it started off just out in the east, and eventually you get Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, all these provinces, or the Canadian version of states. So entire regions were quote unquote a mystery until everything moved westward, right? In the case of the New World here in North America, right? It seemed to move east to west, at least by the history of what we're told. So that's the term reset, is it's come in after the fact and basically starting over after either a controlled cataclysm or a naturally occurring cyclical cataclysm. And I think the cataclysm, the earth grid electrical power surge theory, it makes sense. And to me, that would be an older cataclysm. And something like the mud flood would be a little bit more recent, but they could be tied. One could be the result of another. Just, like ripples in a pond, it takes a while, cause and effect for it to trickle down to, chain react or domino effect into other catastrophes. But there's definitely certain groups, fraternal orders and secret societies that are involved in these things. There's a lot of speculation that the Freemasons are the ones that would kind of come in and clean stuff up and claim certain buildings, and the Oddfellows in part that are sort of associated with the Freemasons, they were in part in charge of repopulating urban areas after they've been fixed up after a reset, most specifically with the orphan trains, and sending in massive amounts of children to repopulate, more far removed areas that have been reclaimed or repurposed or reset. But again, these are just, theories or conjecture on my part. But yeah. But who knows? Yes, indeed. Thank you, hippie. Yeah. You give a fella one of these, or a thumbs down. I mean, if you hate everything and you think I'm talking out of my ass, then it's fine. But yeah, thanks for your question. Very interesting topic, and it's something that I've sort of touched on here and there. I don't know if I've ever kind of fully sat down and ever explained sort of what my theory is. Like this area of Calgary, like where I live, my immediate area, with the what I suspect a lot of these buildings are old world buildings, I'm not seeing any evidence of what some other channels show in other parts of the world where they look melted, right? Like exposed to some kind of extreme heat or electric discharge that would again cause some kind of heat that would cause these buildings to. And then I have to say, yeah, a lot of these do look like melted buildings. Now, is every mountain in the Canadian Rockies a building? No, I don't think so. But some of these large hills with caves in them, what look like openings that look very much like, arched windows or doorways, access points anyway, that look kind of half melted over. I mean, those definitely could be melted buildings. But I don't see any of that here in Calgary, but I do see some of that in Alberta and what we call the Badlands. Definitely in and around Drumheller and Brooks, Medicine Hat, Dinosaur Provincial Park, with all them there dead dinosaurs in the ground there, apparently. That whole area looks like it's been fried. Something happened that was different than what happened here in Calgary. And I think is much older. Well, when I say much, I mean maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred years older. I don't know, but older than what I think was the most recent catastrophe, which was here in Calgary, or at least in my area, was a mud flood. there was some crazy stuff that happened here in the year 1700 that they say. In the Canadian Rocky Mountains, and then just off the coast of Vancouver Island, off the west coast of Vancouver Island, there in the Pacific, some kind of underground, or I'm sorry, underwater earthquake that caused a huge tsunami that not only devastated British Columbia and Washington and Oregon states, but came as far inland as Alberta and Idaho and Montana. And of course, the effects of that tsunami actually caused some severe damage all the way over in Japan and the Korean Peninsula, so they say. So, I mean, that could be what kicked off what I'm seeing here in Calgary and some of the other immediate prairie towns in my area of what I think was a mud flood, where I'm seeing, anywhere from 2 to 4, maybe 5 feet of ground level that shouldn't be there. But I think the melted stuff was before that. But when, I don't know. And why some areas were affected by it and others weren't, I don't know. Or maybe Calgary was, but there was maybe nothing here at that time, or it was completely destroyed and just built on top of. I mean, we've seen that countless times too. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I certainly have no idea. That's why I do the boots on the ground. I just try to figure out what's going on from what I can see with my own 2 peepers. And speaking of peepers, I think I'm getting ready to wind this thing down here very shortly, but keep your peepers peeled to the channel for upcoming updates on my 1,500 subscriber meetup here in Inglewood, Calgary. That's going to be great. Shooting for mid-June, as mentioned. As we get closer to that time period, I will kind of nail down a more specific date and try to give you a couple of weeks notice on that firm date, so that if anybody's in town or is going to be in town at that time, they can make plans. If you want to meet up, would love to meet you. Love to have you join. I know Cousin Vinny for sure is going to be joining me. A friend of the channel who's a local here in southern Alberta, Kim Ray, said she wants to come by as well. I think Bernie from Crypto Alchemist and Burn Eye, mine's Third Eye, the science guy without the bow tie. He's expressed interest as well. And Bernie and I've met up and done videos together before anyway, but we live fairly close to each other here in Calgary. But yeah, there's a few people that are locals that have expressed interest. So again, the best way to stay in communication with me for information on that is a guy's email, which is in the link below, or in the link for that's in the box below, I should say, along with everything else we covered here tonight, as well as my New West Reset location map that Cousin Vinny was very kind to work on. And basically, you click on that link and it takes you to the location map, and you'll see my icon pop up. And you click on that icon, and it'll take you to a location, address, and a link to the video, the name of the video. And you click on that link, it takes you right to the video. And if it's a video where I go on walkabout or a mud flood tour, and there's multiple buildings, those videos are all linked. So that's great. Thank you very much once again, Cousin Vinny, for that. And as mentioned, MeWe and my BitChute channel as well, and Rumble, which again, welcome to everybody on the YouTube and the Rumble, broadcasting simultaneously on the Rumble right now, as well as the YouTube. So thank you. Appreciate all that support. And yeah, if you want to support me financially in other ways, sure, that'd be great. I mean, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire, drag you over the coals for it. Like I said, a guy's got a job. I mean, I do work for a living, so that's fine. But people have expressed interest in sending some Canadian doll hairs a guy's way. So that'll go towards the channel. maybe a new, what do you call them things? The thing that you put your camera and your phone on so it doesn't shake. You know what I'm talking about. Maybe one of them. I don't know. Maybe a flashlight. Maybe a set of gloves for the winter so the guy's fingers don't freeze. I don't know. But yeah, links for everything there below. And of course, as mentioned, all the Wikipedia links and everything we looked at here tonight for the Crystal Palaces of Canada. So where are we at here? Wow, just past 2.5 hours. Still 20 of you watching. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thanks for kicking off your weekend here with yours truly. Really appreciate that. I mean, it's Friday. So yeah, thank you for spending a bit of that with me. Yes, a gimbal. Thank you, Terry. I had a mental hiccup there. Some crimson nail polish. Probably not. Probably not. Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe. Maybe I can identify as the other gender and then the government will pay for my crimson nail polish. I don't know. But no, I wouldn't want to do that. That's just silly. It's silly and ridiculous. All right, I'm going to get myself and all of you in the box some trouble if I keep going down that road. So I think with that, that's it. I think that's going to seal the deal here tonight for Frankie, New West Reset, and New West Reset Live, episode 62, the Crystal Palaces of Canada. So once again, thank you very much. And a reminder, as always, coming up Sunday, boots on the ground. You had your sneak peek at your midweek vintage footage. That's coming up every Wednesday as per usual. And this coming Wednesday, viewer discretion advised now. With the creepy video with the incubator babies. And we'll see you here next week for another live one. So thank you to everybody there in the box. Appreciate it. All you kooks in the box, all you crazy people. Thank you very much. Appreciate all your support. Couldn't ask for a better crowd. You're a bunch of good people. I'm truly, truly blessed to have you take some time out of your week to join me. Like I said, it's my favorite time of the week, and it's because of you folks. So thank you. Appreciate it. So there you go. Until the next one, take care out there, everybody, and have yourselves a good one. All right? We'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.